Okay. Hi, I'm Meg, even though it says Martha Grady. My department that I'm in is Mechanical Science and Engineering. And like I wrote on the board, I've appropriately titled today's little lesson, May the Force Be With You. Because today we're going to talk about forces. And eventually we'll get to free body diagram. May the Force Be With You is from a popular movie, Star Wars. If you haven't seen it, you probably should. Or you shouldn't be in grad school. Just kidding. But let's talk about where this concept of forces comes from. We're going to be talking about it in the context, let's say, of engineering. So you guys are probably not all engineers, as they made that on purpose. But what are some things that engineers do? For example, you probably know a couple examples, maybe.
Design stuff.
Design. What's your name?
I'm Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. Anyone else? What else other than design?
Math.
Math. Okay. Maybe calculate. I want to think of something more than just writing up math, because you don't do math. But we'll say calculate. Sure. What else? Maybe like a civil engineer. What do? Build infrastructures, right? So build. Okay, can anybody think of one more? One more example?
Invent.
Say that again?
Invent.
Invent. What's your name?
Invent new materials.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Jenny.
Jenny?
Jenny, yeah.
Thank you. Invent. What if there's already a product on the market? What do they do with that product to make it better? Improve. We'll add that over here. All right, so in the context of engineering, they design, calculate, build, invent, and improve what? Materials, right? You gotta have that as a building block for engineers to do any of this stuff. So there's some things you need to know about materials. You need to know forces on them. We'll talk about a definition. You need to know limits. Materials have limits. It's going to be important. And materials have other properties, right? It could be conductivity, it could be color, it could be density. And this is important because we don't make chairs out of saran wrap for those reasons, because materials have limits, right? So I mentioned forces. Forces affect materials. Materials help engineers do their jobs better. So what is a force? I know this isn't a math class, but it's hard to talk about some of these concepts in broad terms. But can anyone give me an example of force? Or what is a force?
Something that acts on something else, maybe?
Okay, what's your name?
Armando.
Armando, that's right. Thank you. So acts on something else. Absolutely. It's something, a force is something that acts on something else. You have two materials, they exert an action on each other. Other two properties of forces is that they have magnitude and direction. For example, I have a 25-pound box, right? This exerts an action on the table, right? The force is downward. One of the ways that we do this in engineering across universities is to pictorially represent forces by an arrow, because this naturally has direction. And then magnitude could be represented by maybe the length of the arrow, this one being a stronger force than the other. Most of the time, we'll just go ahead and write the magnitude underneath the arrow. Easy peasy, right? So then what we can come up with is an entire pictorial representation of what is happening between the box and the table. So I'm going to draw the box here and the table here. This is a pictorial representation of what's happening. But I want to picture forces. So here's a box. Here's its 25 pounds going down. But because this is not moving, there has to be something counteracting this to keep it up. Right? So there's an opposite force. This is called equilibrium. Now if I'm an engineer, let's say this is a 25-pound bird feeder. And they've told me I have to hang it up by these two strings. There's some things I need to know, right? Different materials, like how much weight can these strings hold? You know, what are its limits? What are its material properties? But one of the other things I need to know is the forces. So I want to draw what's called a free body diagram. This is where we were trying to head today. This is going to be a good definition to know. Like I mentioned, it's a pictorial representation of forces on a body. Right? So now I'm going to draw a box. And I've got two strings now. And we still have the force going downward. In order for this box to move, or to not move, which way do you think the arrows have to be pointing? Take a guess, it's okay.
Opposite.
Opposite. Why do you say that? What's your intuition telling you?
Well, if you don't want it to move, you want to counteract that. So it's like if you're doing a tug of war. If a team is pulling you, you're going to pull in the other way.
Exactly. It's simple. Right, so your arrows are probably going to go up. So what we're doing now is we're trying to say something about the state of the box. We're going to call that equilibrium. I'm going to write that next to it. Make sure I spell it right. Equilibrium. Fantastic. In an engineering world, it means basically the sum of all the forces in here have to equal 0. Sum of all forces vertically, sum of all forces horizontally. And of course we have our nice summation sign. Sum of all forces equal to 0. Alright, so where did we start? We started with forces. What engineers have to do in order to do their job. Design, improve, calculate, build, and invent. They do this with materials. Materials have limits, properties, and forces. One of the ways that we can take our everyday items, fridges, buildings, boxes that weigh 25 pounds, and represent forces so we can manipulate them to do our job better is a free body diagram. And this is just a pictorial representation. All right, out of time. Thanks.